In the category of the Tubin history, we have a new book out from Carol Anderson, apparently a racist pig, about called second race and guns in a fatally unequal America. This is some kind of a liberal leftist nut job, professor obsessed with her own race, and the nonsense that you're going to start hearing in a little bit about how the Second Amendment is racist. All right, now you gotta really flip your worldview on this to understand the nonsense that's coming out. But basically, just like we have, Tubin. I think that's why Tubin News is so good, because you got a guy there. By the way, I don't see both your hands there, brother.
Right here, brother.
All right. I just really, all right. Just like you had this creep Tubin, masturbating on air all the time, and now is back with CNN. What's the difference, right? Whether he's doing it for real, right? Good job. Or he's doing it, on the air. He spent a whole career doing nothing but narcissistically talking about themselves, narcissistically masturbating on air. And that's why I think it's perfectly appropriate now that Tubin is back on CNN, and we have now Tubin News. Well, just like we have Tubin News, we also have Tubin History. These, these fools. There are real slavery going on.
Doesn't he have a firm grasp on the material?
No, he does not have. These people do not have a firm grasp on the material, right? Just like, but we also have this effect of it's a self-obsession about themselves and their color. This self-obsession about themselves and the slavery they never had, and that hasn't been. They haven't had for a long time. Just like last week we talked about Keon Park. Yeon Kim, I butchered her name. I'm sorry. Yeon Park, who is this poor North Korean girl who escaped and defected from North Korea to China, who was an actual slave, okay? An actual slave, which is going on in Chinese communism. There is real slavery going on in Chinese communism, communist country today, and in Africa today. So there's a real slavery problem, not the mythical problem that these narcissists keep bringing up. Well, anyway, this idiot wants to turn around the Second Amendment, and you're going to start seeing a lot of this push for the Second Amendment as being something that the founding fathers came up with to keep slaves down. That's the theory, anyway. And she does this nonsensical statement about that the founding fathers were more worried about keeping the guns out of the slaves' hands than they were the invasions from Britain. Now, this is just so ahistorical. This is just so ridiculous. First of all, the Second Amendment literally is to keep guns in the hands of citizens. So it was to prevent laws which are on the books right now, which are completely anti-constitutional, anti-Second Amendment, from taking effect. It was the idea that all citizens have a right to have a gun, including free black citizens. Now, of course, there was slavery at the beginning of the Constitution. The Constitution literally killed slavery. It stopped the importation of slaves by a certain date. It put a kill by date, as kill by switch in the Constitution. Whereas if the South wanted power, they had to recognize the slaves as citizens. If they did that, instead of being counted as 3/4 of a person, they'd be counted as a whole person, and they would get increased power. So they put a bunch of bitter pills in the Constitution, and chief among them was the Second Amendment. Now, remember this is just so ahistorical in so many levels. Of course, for the full 100 years before this, all of English law was a development of the right to have a gun in England, because you had the battle of Parliament against the king. So you had King James I, also known as King James II. Assert absolute monarchy and absolute power. You had Charles I, You had to have Parliament cut his head off. You had the rise of Cromwell. You have the rise of the Parliament. The only way they could do that was by using their God-given right to have guns and revolting in the English Civil War. And then you had various battles back and forth. Then you had the Restoration. You had Charles II come in. You have James II come in because they was Catholic. You had the Glorious Revolution and the throwing out of Parliament, rising up of Parliament again, and throwing out the king again. And you had the British Bill of Rights, establishing that Protestants, at least, had the absolute right to keep guns, which was one of the progenitors of the Second Amendment right. Of course, the Second Amendment right is a completely American doctrine and a completely American a unique thing, because it wasn't about Protestants, it was about citizens. And of course, you had the actual revolution itself, which was nothing more than a revolt against the gun grab of Parliament and the king, who both were oppressing Americans when they ordered the seizing of American guns that kicked off the shot heard around the world, and the battles of Lexington and Concord, when American militiamen stopped the British from seizing guns. So literally, the American Revolution and the founding of the country began with a gun confiscation attempt. So it is factually wrong and ridiculous for her to say. Not only that, but of course, what happened in 1812? Well, the British came back. An entire British invasion began. They burned Washington, and we're going to burn every city on the East Coast. So that happened, in between the Revolutionary War, the founding of the country, the Constitution, and then the Bill of Rights, the first 10 amendments, and then, a few years later, the British were back invading the coast. It's completely factually made up. This so-called professor and her so-called history. And not only that, if you want to attribute the actual gun violence, the gun laws, yes, there were Southern Democrat states. They were the Democrats down there. Every single one of them a Democrat, and every single law passed by a Democrat legislature to keep guns out of the hands of the of black slaves to begin with, and then black freedmen after the Civil War. Every single one of them a Democrat. Even the Nazis would adopt the Democrat laws when they wanted to keep guns out of the hands of the poor Jews and undesirable people in Nazi Germany. And then, of course, in 1968, when that bum Dodd was looking for a basis for the federal 1968 anti-gun gun law, he had to look to Nazi Germany's version of the Democrat law. And had to translate it from the Nazi German into English. We used to have that on our website, the actual request to the National Archives, because he was in Nuremberg. He saw that Nazi law and he wanted to translate it, and and he sent a letter to the National Archives to get it translated. That then became the basis of the 1968 federal law prohibiting machine guns. So yes, again, these are Democrat racist laws. So it is a fact that gun control really is the dog whistle for the Democrats to take the guns out of the hands of black people and white people, but particularly black people. Gun violence is really the dog whistle for black man with a gun. And just like the Democrats did before the Civil War, just like the Democrats did right after the Civil War and during the Jim Crow period, they are back today again, creating gun laws to systematically discriminate against black people who want to defend themselves. Now, I just exercised my First Amendment right to assemble with a bunch of my brothers and like-minded people in a gun show in Oaks and down here in Pennsylvania, and it was filled with my brother black and brown sisters and brothers, exercising their Second Amendment right to buy guns. Now, we did a deep dive on this way back when, if you remember, in one of our earlier shows when it was just Sussex County Patriot. I think, a particular journalist won the Ida Wells Journalist Award, and that would be that guy right over there. Won the Ida Wells Journalism Award because one of our heroes, we'd actually did a study and written some stuff up on the autobiography and the writings of Ida Wells, who was the woman as an early journalist, true journalist, who stopped the lynching of black people in after the Civil War. She brought awareness to it, and she had a couple of great quotes that I'm going to read. So this is from good old Ida Wells, right after the Civil War period. This is one of her quotes. The only time an African American who was assaulted got away has been when he had a gun and used it in self-defense. And that was Ida Wells referring to lynching, when they would grab up black people and lynch them. So she's also the one that it says that had the lessons this teaches us is, and when every African American should ponder is this, that a Winchester rifle should have a place of honor in every black house, and it should be used for that protection which the law refuses to give. And so she's that one that one of the reasons why we loved her is that every black home should have a Winchester a rifle in it. Another one of her quotes is, the only way to right wrongs is to turn the light of truth upon them. She was a true journalist in that she began a newspaper to expose all of these individual incidents of lynchings of black people for imaginary crimes. And it was almost like she was speaking to these virtue signaling, narcissistic, Tubin fake historians of today. And this is one of my favorite quotes from her. Virtue knows no color line, and the chivalry which depends upon complexion of skin and texture of hair can command no honest respect. So she's speaking to that creep Carol Anderson and her ilk, who would draw everything about the texture of someone's hair and the color, the complexion of their skin. She would say they deserve no honest respect, and they don't. We should ridicule them for the fake historians that they are. As one wag has pointed out, or as a bumper sticker has pointed out, citizens own guns and slaves don't. Or as it's my shout out to my particular a cultural commentary and wag, it says abortion is murder, guns are self-defense. And so that's our segment on the new thing that you're going to be hearing about the Second Amendment, how it is allegedly a racist. No, it's not. It's the exact opposite of racist.
Well, gun control is racist. That's for sure.
Gun control is racist. So the only people who believe in gun control are racist. That's right. Back in this during the Civil War and still today.